Hello and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
You know, sometimes I wonder what happened to the people who asked me for directions.
Are you supposed to do that at the end of the show?
I just pondering things.
Pondering, who's kissing you?
It's kind of like I wonder, like, I know what I did before the age of Google Maps, but it's like so many people, we just toss on Google, okay, I want to go from here to there, tell me how to get there. And it's kind of fun when you're going through areas of the country you've never been. Hell, even in Minnesota. It's like, okay, I want to go from this part to that part. In the old days, I'd like take the freeway and loop to a big U or a V, and now it's like, okay, let's take crossroads and see sights of the country I've never seen before. And I always think the same thing as I'm traveling. Do the jarheads in Washington, not that I want to insult jarheads, have they ever even been on these roads? Or do they just stick in their planes, trains? I know they don't drive automobiles and just cast judgment down upon us. Whereas I've actually seen parts of the country these asswipes have probably never seen.
I was thinking, well, I've been reading a lot about all this stuff going on in wrestling, how they're in WWE, they're just cutting people right and left. They're making more money than they ever have, and they're still just firing people right and left. To the point where Vincent Kennedy McMahon, in the recent investors call, one of the investors said, you've been getting rid of some main event talent and it's been being picked up by your competition. And Vince said, we don't have any competition. We don't have competition. And if other wrestling companies are interested, we'll have more talent for them. And at first, everybody thought he was being very arrogant. And then the next day, he fired Bray Wyatt. And the next week, he cut 12 talent from NXT. And rumors are they're going to be cutting a lot more. And I was reading up on him. And he has not been in a grocery store for over 30 years. He hasn't. Back when the WWF used to drive, they'd go town to town to town and they'd be on the road for like 30, 40, 50 days in a row. They don't do that anymore. He doesn't show up at those events. He'll fly in if it's Raw. Sometimes he's there at SmackDown. Sometimes he isn't. He flies in. He's driven to the arena. He's driven back and he flies in his private plane. And he's in his 70s, and he thinks he knows what the average person wants to see on TV. And if you watch the shows, you realize he has no clue what people want.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much, hardcore people, even like yourself, are like, you know what? I'm not watching Raw till he gives it up.
But you get this detachment from what real people's lives are like. And when you read about, especially Washington political people, they're so insulated from the rest of the world that their mindset just kind of hardens. And I think that happens too with anybody who makes it to a certain level of finances. I still remember when George Bush the Elder was running for president against Bill Clinton. And they had a photo op of him going to a grocery store. And he could not believe the scanners. He was like, oh my gosh, how does that work? How long has this been around? And the reason was he hadn't been in a grocery store for at least 12 years because he was, he was in the CIA and he was vice president. So he didn't know these things. And it immediately painted him as somebody who was out of touch.
And that's just the way it is with politicians at that level. Think about it like Trump. I mean, Trump will probably enjoy it, but he will never be able to do anything normal if he ever did again. Obama, Clinton, Bush too. They're basically in an insulated bubble for life after being president. And a lot of people are like that in the political world, but not me. Oh, I also, what do you think about the rumors that WWE he might be paring down to sell it?
I would not be surprised because they brought in the guy they brought in to run it is a Hollywood guy who, was one of the
Oh,
higher ups in entertainment companies. So he's been going through and he's been given the power to get rid of anything that's costing money.
not like we
And
haven't seen that before. DC Comics.
and what they're saying is that he basically is going through, and if you're not bringing in a good enough return on investment, you're gone. And they were already shorthanded with the pandemic, and they've often been a company where, okay, everything's running smoothly with 8 people in this department. That means we have too many people. We can get rid of 3 of them and just have everybody work more. And that's very much a corporate thing. And I don't want to get too deep into it, but in the 90s, I remember by 95, 96, all I had to do was put my resume out there, and I was getting interviews and job offers. And I finally took a job offer where they had a signing bonus, and they gave me an amazing schedule. Remember, I hung out at your shop on Tuesdays. The reason for that was when they offered me the job, I said, well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to work 9 hours on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and leave after 4 hours on Tuesday. They're like, yeah, sure. So I would get done at noon, drive over to your shop where you opened. You didn't open at noon every.
No,
No,
we
you
didn't
did
start
open
the
at
11
noon.
o'clock open
Yeah.
till later.
Yeah. And then after the recession of 2000 and 2001 and 2003 and 2008, all these companies got to the point where they were saying publicly, people are lucky that we give them jobs. We are job creators. We need to be treated more importantly. I remember I had interviews where they basically would talk, the company would talk about how, we get to be picky because there's so many people out there looking for work, and we have no problem with blah, 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 blah. So, and you would look at the salaries they were offering, and they would often be 20, 30% less than they were offering 5 years before. Why? Because they could. Well, now these companies are entering into an era where there aren't enough workers. There are people who've retired during the pandemic. On the low end of the scale, a lot of immigrants are not coming here anymore, both at the low end of the scale and at the higher end of the scale. We're not getting a lot of people from Europe or India who, I need to go to the US in order to get on with these tech companies or get on with a medical career or this. They're looking at America like, you guys are a mess. We're not even going to bother with your schools. So we're not getting we're not getting that brain trust coming in. It's not getting to a brain drain yet, but you could see it within the next year or so once European countries open their borders. A lot of people in the US saying, you know what? They don't really like us smart people here. Let's go over to Europe where I don't have to worry about my medical bills. They're going to pay me better. The roads are in good shape. The infrastructure is in good shape. And I don't have to worry about, if a pandemic breaks out, a bunch of idiots saying it's not real. So you're seeing employment change, and companies aren't as nimble as they were in the 90s. They're the people who were, hey, we need to hire people, so we need to give more perks, and we need to raise our wages. You've got all these CEOs and HR people and people in the higher echelons who've never dealt with this before. They've never dealt with the fact that supply and demand. Well, there's demand for workers. They're not the ones in charge of supply anymore. They've spent 20 years being in charge of supply. And they don't know how to deal with it. And that's why you're getting a lot of this with employers not knowing what to do. The lower end people are blaming unemployment when study after study after study after study shows that's not what it is. It's people are like, I'm not going to do your crappy job at a restaurant for $2.13 an hour in tips. I'm just not. I could get a corporate job that pays $15, $16, $17 an hour. I could get this job, or I can, work for Instacart, or I could work for Uber or whatever and make more money. Or I don't want to work at a fast food place where they treat me like crap, they pay me minimum wage, and the job is terrible. People have a choice now, and employers aren't stepping up. And I imagine as you drove across the country trying desperately to pull this back on topic.
We don't really have a topic. We just talk.
As you drove across the country with Dana, I imagine you saw a lot of help wanted signs.
Nope.
Really?
Nope, because we're on the freeway. You don't see that shit on the freeway. You do see a lot of wall drug signs, though, especially as you're heading towards wall drug.
Joe, I have a confession.
What's that?
I've never really been to Wall Drug. I just told people that so they think that I was cool.
Oh, no, don't worry, Cory. We never thought you were cool.
Oh, good. Wait a minute.
See, maybe that is something to do to get you to Wall Drug. Now, of course, the problem was, as you know, what did you do while I was gone? I haven't even got a chance to look at the podcast.
Well, I had the one that we did before you left.
Oh, the Hey, I'm Free Tuesday, Let's Do One podcast.
Yes, the last one of your sketchbook.
Oh, cool.
And then our Geek Day, except the sound on it is terrible. I did what I could to clean it up, but the sound on it is terrible.
Yeah. Well, that's what we get for driving in your car.
What else did I have my eyes lasered so that now I can see better.
Cool.
And no, it wasn't LASIK surgery. It was after my cataract surgery 2 years ago. They were like, yeah, that plastic we put on your outer lens and just secured it to your inner lens? Your inner lens is getting all scarred up from that. So they actually have to use a laser. And it's not that hard a procedure. They basically put eye drops in to make your pupil bigger. Then they use other eye drops to numb your eye. And then, Joe, you've seen the jeweler's monocle thing that they have.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what they put on your eye, and then they just fire a laser into it. And the guy doing it is basically, he said it's a lot like a video game. You just start firing it where you see the scars. And each one was better, like, immediately.
Cool.
My eyes were really watery and kind of gunky for the next 2 or 3 days. And both days I had a really brutal headache afterward because they're shooting a laser in your eye. But, other than that, I did what I normally do. I read comics, I worked, and I worked.
Well, good. I hope you worked. You got to keep the economy rolling.
Yeah. Somebody has to.
So, well, I drove cross country, which seemed like a good idea at the time. And I like a good road trip. I mean, and initially it started out, we rented a van from Penske, and I got to tell, they gave us a Ford van that worked marvelously. I'd never had such a smooth ride in a rental van before, so I give them 2 thumbs up. Plus the AC was perfect. I packed everything in the back of the truck in such a way that it wouldn't rattle. And as far as I know, everything survived the trip to Reno. So it was originally my wife and I would be in the rental van. So we got up, we just took our time, we got on the road. We're about an hour out of the Twin Cities, and we get a call from Dana. They haven't left yet because they're still trying to corral their cats. One of the reasons why we're trying to get across country in 3 days, and again, if it was just Chris and I driving, we could have done it in like a day and a half. But they had this. They figured they had this stop, and I figured, okay, 3 stops. Reno would be the last stop. Salt Lake City, Rapid City. So the first day is the Rapid City. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, Chris and I got an hour ahead of people. So we thought, okay, we'll stop at Corn Palace, Wall Drug, just if it was just Chris and I, we would have just stopped at, anything that caught our attention. And we've driven the ride out to Rapid City before, so it's not that big a deal. And of course, I was on a moratorium. I couldn't go to Sioux City, or I couldn't go to Rapid City to any comic shops. I had to wait till I got to Reno. But we had fun. However, Dana blew a tire, which sucked because, again, this was like 90-degree plus days out on the freeway in a construction zone, 1 lane. She calls AAA, and AAA is like, oh, we don't work out there. Well, why am I buying AAA then? We only work like within certain miles of where we service. And I don't know what she said to them, but they're like, okay, well, we'll get out there in like 3-4 hours. And I'm like, bloody hell. And we're thinking, well, what are we going to do? We got a rental truck, turn around and go get them. Fortunately, and again, this is with the day of Google, they were able to Google a guy who was 5 minutes away who came out and got him, dragged him back. 2 hours later, got him back on the road. Found out it was just they had hit some debris in the road that damaged the rim of her car, and that's what caused the tire to deflate. So it wasn't a tire blowout, which would have been very upsetting because before we left, Dana had her tires checked. She had everything checked out. Dropped about like $500-600 getting everything ready so this car could be cross country. Anyways, they caught up with us at Rapid City. That was pretty much day 1. When they let the cats out, the cats apparently immediately retreated to the highest point in the hotel room.
Yes, that's what they do.
And
or they hide under things.
Come to think of it, that was leaving Rapid City, because as we were leaving, they're like, we cannot find one of the cats. Like, what do you mean you can't find one of the cats? We don't know where it is. Well, they started to tear the place apart, and eventually they discovered the cat had climbed up under the mattress and was hiding in the little spot between the mattress and the it's not really a box spring, but it's like just the box thing, the square that holds your thing up, because you don't have any really spare space. I don't think anybody has cleaned that since the hotel opened.
Usually they don't, no.
Nope. So, and I honestly said,
so the cat was dusting.
Pretty much. But they did find the cat. They stuffed it in the kennel. And we started away on to Salt Lake City. Now, here's where Google came into play, because I was looking at, okay, what's the quickest way? And by the way, when you're looking at Google and it says, you'll be there in 9 hours, don't believe it. But they said, okay, it's going to be a 12-hour trip to Salt Lake City. Well, let's do the shortest way. So it took us through various back roads and things like that. Now, as we're going out of South Dakota into Wyoming, guess what gave out now? I think, Cory, you already know the answer to this.
I already know the answer, so it would be cheating.
Well, go ahead and tell the good folks.
The air conditioning died.
While we're in 90-degree heat, traveling with 2 cats, the only air conditioning is the rental van. And now I'm allergic to cats. So with much gnashing of teeth, I tried to figure out what we're going to do. And I was like, well, here's what we're going to do. You're going to put the 2 cats in the van with me. I'm going to sit with Dana's boyfriend, Zach. Zach, for whatever reason, doesn't drive. And then the girls will have
Peter
to be.
Parker.
he drove a scooter for a while.
Yeah. And then he
But-
crashed the Spider-Mobile.
He did. But the girls would be in the car, and I said, you're going to have to do what NASCAR does. Just let the hot air blow on you. Now it's hot, dry air, so they're not going to get sweaty. But then we stopped at Walmart and we picked up spray canisters, like the little, squirt sprays.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
said, I said, picked up like a 2-gallon thing of water. I said, you just drink water, keep drinking. If you need to, wet down the towel, wear it over your head. We used to do that back when our CTX machines at work, the baggage machines were like out in tug drive where it's like 120 degrees, even if it's only 80 degrees outside. So as we were driving, this time we drove behind them instead of driving, and occasionally they drove ahead of us. Again, just really crazy country, just amazingly flat ranches, gullies. I mean, I get fascinated by driving. I mean, people are like, oh, it's the same thing over and over. Not to me. I just watch it and it just keeps me entertained the entire way. I did feel bad because I think I freaked Zach out because he wanted to initiate a conversation about Sandman, and I was like, I kind of blew him off mainly because I was just thinking my brain trying to figure out how the hell we were going to take care of getting things at Salt Lake City. The only interesting thing about Salt Lake City, Cory, have you ever been to Salt Lake City?
No, I have not. Now, I've been through South Dakota. The last family trip we had, we drove to Cheyenne, Wyoming. And the reason we went there is when my dad was in the Air Force and I was very small, I think ages 2 and 3, he lived in Cheyenne and my mother and I moved out there. And God, they always told the story of how I was like 3 years old and they were driving back to Illinois. They were counting pennies to make sure they had gas on the way back. And they stopped at a restaurant to get something. And, they had the cheapest thing on the menu. And the waitress asked me what I wanted. And I said, a T-bone steak. But no, we're driving out there. And I was, I think, 15 or 16. And it was the last family trip. I was 15 or 16. My sisters were like, the youngest was like 5 or 6. The oldest was, I think, 12 or 13. And the middle sister was like 10 or 11. And we were all in a Ford LTD for days. It took us 2 days to get there. And it was a nightmare. The whole trip was a nightmare. But South Dakota was there was nothing to see. We didn't have an FM radio.
Grassland and every one of those little signs that exits to nothing was actually exiting out to a ICBM missile site.
But we get like 50 miles out of Cheyenne on the way out there. And my sisters and I have been picking on each other, for the whole day. And we're arguing and arguing and arguing. And my dad says, if you kids don't shut the hell up, I'm going to turn around and we're going to drive straight home.
And you're all like, hooray!
Nope. I said, do it. I dare you. We've been on the road for 2 days. We're not even an hour away. I dare you. That's how irritated we all were. I dare you. And my dad just looked at my mom and said, I'm going to kill that kid. I'm going to just kill that kid. But on the way back, we did all of South Dakota in a day.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to do in a day.
No, it wasn't. Because it's okay. We're going to stop at the Corn Palace. We had no idea.
Oh, so you were stopping at stuff.
And then we went to Crazy Horse. And this was in 1980 when you could just barely make it out. And we were there for like an hour and a half. We get to Mount Rushmore as it's closing. Everybody walk up take 2 pictures, walk down, get in the car, and go.
Kind of like National Lampoon Vacation. Here's the Grand Canyon. Okay, take it in, boys. Okay, let's go.
And then, Dad wanted to go through the Badlands, and we're going through. By the time we get to the Badlands, it's just dark.
Oh,
It's nighttime, and this is in summer, so it had to be like 9, 10 o'clock at night. And we're driving through the Badlands, and my dad says, if we could see, this is some really beautiful country.
yeah, it is.
And we were just like, we want to stop. We've been on the road for 15 hours, and we stop at places where are boring.
And
my
you still
dad's one
didn't
of
get
those
to Wall Drug.
No, all the way there, it's like, there's a Wall Drug sign.
Yeah.
We're only an hour away from Wall Drug. And we get to where you turn off here to go to Wall Drug. My dad just shoots past it. And all of us, even my mom, are like, hey, why didn't we go to? Oh, I thought you guys were just joking.
I got to say, there's some mentality about dads of that era, because my dad was the same way, where he wouldn't, we don't want to go there. It's just a tourist trap. It's a tourist, I don't know if your dad was the same. My dad was like, okay, we got to get the A to B. Let's do it as fast as possible.
Yes. And you would say, hey, we need to stop the next, to go to the bathroom. And you go, nope, we're not stopping for another 45 minutes.
Yeah. Nope, my dad was the same. And that's probably why when Chris and I travel, if we see something we want to stop at, we want to. I do feel bad because Zach has never been out of, like, the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. He's never seen Mount Rushmore. And I told Dana, and again, Dana's not thinking this way because after the cats and the blowout, and this was before the AC, I was like, you could have driven up to go see not only Mount Rushmore as a drive-by, but then circle around and see Crazy Horse and then get back on the road and catch up with us. But nobody thought that way. If I'd have known that, I would have suggested. I wasn't going to drive the rental van up there, but because we again, I was trying to plan the easiest way out, and one of the ways I thought, because the goal was to most part to get to I-80. I thought about I-70 and going through the mountains, very pretty area. I'm glad I did not, because I-70 is closed between, I was up in Eagle for a while. I don't think, were we recording podcasts back then yet? When I first went on the road? I think that might have been when I went to Alaska, but it's actually closed. The I-70 Canyon, the natives had a word for this that basically, I believe, translated in death. They never went into the canyon before the white men showed up. And so naturally, we blew I-70 through there, and we have rail lines through there going along the Colorado River. Well, they've had wildfires, they've had rain, they've got mudslides that wiped out an entire section of I-70. I didn't know about this. Had we done that, we would have had to take like a 300-mile detour around just to get back on the I-70. That's how few roads there are out there in the middle of the Rocky Mountains. The one reason I didn't do that, although I really wanted to, because if I got to Denver, I would have figured out a way to get to Mile High Comics. I really didn't want to drive a rental van on I-70 because it's way high in the mountains and it's tough. When we got on the I-80, that could explain why there were tons of trucks. I just figured, hey, this is a major trucking route, Well, yeah, the other major trucking route's closed. So going into Salt Lake City, by the time we got there, it was night. So, but the I-80 going into Salt Lake City, and it goes like this. Okay, turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left. And you're going down at a pretty steep grade because you're upwards going down in elevation. I would swear maybe 2,000 feet. And all you see in front of you are the dots in the road and the other cars. And I'm doing 65, and these cars, including semis, are doing 80s. I didn't realize it, but Zach was in the near panic. I don't think he's ever driven that fast before. I was just going, okay, I've been on this road before as a kid. I got to trust that if they're telling me I can go 65 and people are going 80, I can go 65 and not worry about it going left, going right. Behind me in the car with no AC, apparently Dana and Chris are in total tears, believing I'm going to crash into the mountainside or go over a ditch any day now. So when I got to the bottom, I was like, "Hey, we made it!" And they're all white knuckled. So they got that going for them, which is nice. But after that, we decided, screw the schedule. We're going to spend a day in Salt Lake City, which is good because it allowed them to relax. Could not find an auto mechanic to fix anything, and I didn't think you would, not in the middle of summer. I mean, it was pretty much anywhere from 90 to 100 the entire way there. So as long as we're in Salt Lake City, I figured, time to visit a few comic book shops. The first one I visited was called Black Cat Comics, 2261 Highland Drive in Sugar House Shopping Center. Cory, you and I have talked a lot about comic stores that if they're not diversified, they're not going to survive. Well, I got to tell you, the two comic stores I stopped at in Salt Lake City were pretty much nothing but comics. Back issues, new comics, graphic novels, clearance books. Not a lot of games, not a lot of toys, not a lot of statues. It was actually, and the amazing thing was, is they were both fairly close to each other. There were about like 4 or 5 comic shops I could visit. And I just picked the 2 that were closest to the airport or closest to the place we were staying there. And Black Cat Comics was amazing. Well, I spent a lot. I think I bought about 14 comics because I just dug through their dollar bin. I picked up some black and white stuff. I picked up things like Sasquatch Detective, which was a 64-page special from Marvel. I'm sorry, from DC. I don't know if you picked that one up, Cory. A couple of Savage.
I don't think I've heard of it.
I know, that's what threw me off. I was like, I don't recall seeing this. Sasquatch Detective is everything comics need: charm, wit, a lovable character, and a healthy dose of positive energy. Let's see, Stillwell, Radwell, Vasquez, Campbell. They're the ones who did it. So I will be reading that in the future. There's a lot of things I'll be reading, talking about as we get in the future. For example, from Lion Forge, I picked up the 3-issue miniseries from Pally Schmidt, Stiletto. And, what I did is I'd go on to like Atomic Avenue and, 3 issues. They got all 3 issues. I'd pick them up. So that was kind of cool. A couple other ones I picked up that, again, these are ones I'd never heard of. Let's see. I picked up Z People from Sit Comics, specializing in zombies and other things that start with Z. And then another one called Super Suckers from the same company. And it has it's obviously about, I think about vampires.
Yeah, that's Binge Books.
But it actually, it's drawn in Archie style. So I picked up an issue number 4. That's all they had. So, but like I said, I picked up 15 different comics just for fun. I just loved it. We wandered around there for a few hours, which was cool. The next one we stopped at, and I want to make sure I get it right, Dr. Volt's Comic Collection, 2043 East 3300 South in Mill Creek, Utah. Again, that's kind of a suburb of the great Salt Lake metropolitan area. Another comics only shop, tons of comics on the wall, not a lot of time to dig through the $2 books. I wish I had time. He had some comics that were listed as foreign comics, reprinting things like Hulk 181 and other things. I'd never seen these things before. Fairly pricey. I didn't pick any up. I did pick up a couple signed books. I picked up an Anita Blake Laughing Corpse that was signed by Ron Lim, of only 80 copies, and then a Ms. Marvel that Greg Horn had done the cover. He had tons of signed books, which I just spent a lot of time looking at him. Very friendly guy. I also picked up apparently a local creator called tell me if I saw this right, Shaolin of None.
Yes.
And this apparently was the Kickstarter edition by Carter, Maldonado, Narita, and Malin. I haven't read it yet, but we will revisit that. He also had a comic store exclusive for his store, Keiju Score #1 from Aftershock. and they had a variant virgin cover. So I picked up both of those. Had a pretty good time. I know I picked up some I think Buffy books for Zach because he went with me while the girls stayed behind and just kind of vegged. I'll give and again there are about 4 or 5 other comic stores. We were on the east end of the area, so those are pretty much the only 2 I was able to go out to hit. Because after that we went to the Harbor Seafood and Steak Restaurant. This is one of those places that serve excellent steak and seafood. I'm trying to think of the word here. I think it's Kuta cut. Yeah, my daughter would know. It's like the best cut available. It's a Japanese type steak.
Kobe.
Thank you.
Kobe beef.
Thank you. And there's one place in, I believe it's Snake Creek, Utah, that serves a version of that is top. Not so top that even my daughter's restaurant out in Stillwater that she works at picks it up. Matter of fact, the guy got in something that was like $100 a pound or an ounce, and he was happier than punch to get it because it's so marbleized and so tender. It was a really, really outstanding meal, and we ate so much, and we went back to the hotel and go, we're not going to do that again on this trip, are we? Because I was ready to go to sleep. So that was our stay in Salt Lake City. We stayed an extra day. We got ourselves up and running, and then we headed out Highway 80, Reno or bust. I gotta tell you, again, we saw the bits of the Great Salt Lake. One of the things that Zach and I got fun with is, we'd see train tracks. And when we saw a train coming, oh, here we go, train, woo, woo. I like trains. Now we're heading into the country, too, where the signs start saying you're heading into a chain area. You either must have chains or snow tires or you're not allowed in it. So we're in a higher elevation, and this is what happens during the wintertime. Areas where you can pull over to the side, trucks chain up, you would chain up your car and continue on. Much like South Dakota has these exits that go nowhere, out in the Salt Lake Desert, and even as we headed into the mountainous area, into the Moab Desert, just exits that go nowhere, roads that just blitz off onto the countryside, and you're like, where do these things go? Who lives out here? We did see one thing where we went up and over a bridge, and beneath us were some railroad tracks that looked like nothing's been run on them in about 100 years. We went past turnoffs for the Oklahoma Trail, if you remember that, Oregon Trail. I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Actual Oregon Trail, where I'm assuming this is where there are actual ruts in the ground from the original wagon trains. All sorts of historical markers, places to stop. We didn't get to stop at none of it. Other than stopping for gas, because that truck getting like 15 miles a gallon and we're going like 1,800 miles, you do the math. I will tell you though, Cory, what is the most important thing you can take with you on a road trip?
A first aid kit.
No.
Cell phone.
Although it's in there. Toilet paper.
See, I bring paper towels, and I always have paper towels in my car.
Same thing. The thing is if you happen, and this happened mostly as a kid, but as if we're traveling stretches of highway where there's nothing, you gotta go. Fortunately, when I went, it was right before we entered the Salt Lake Desert, and I'm trying to get up the map here, so see if I can figure out where it is. Okay, we went around the Salt Lake. It was a rest stop right before we headed into the Salt Lake proper. No toilet paper in it. That's why you carry toilet paper. So, fortunately for me, the rest stop was very restful. Very restful. One of the few stops we took is at a place called Elko, and I think, am I in Nevada? Yep, we're in Nevada already. So we're on our way, baby. So Elko, Nevada, we stopped. The girls wanted to eat. They were ahead of us. And basically, if they want to stop, we're going to stop because they're in the non-air conditioned car. We're in the air conditioned cab with the cats. The cats did calm down. We did put a cover over them, and other than the one just wanting to look out the window, they finally settled down and just went to sleep. We drove in and we're like, well, we're going to McDonald's. When we get there and then we can't find the girls. And I'm like, well, I'm not driving this through the drive-through, so let's go in. Well, they had went to the Wendy's across the street. So we thought, okay, well, that works out okay. And then as we're eating and they're eating, because we're like, well, let's just eat in the car. I thought, you know what? This is a pretty good sized town. I wonder if they have a comic shop here. They did. Frank and Fred's Comic and Cards. I only can give it a honorable mention. It's 1910 Idaho Street, I believe Suite 103 in Elko, Nevada, because when I found out there was one there and it was like virtually like 3 minutes from the McDonald's we were at, I said, hey, can we stop at this? And the girls are like, no. Okay, well, we're going to finish eating, so why don't you guys just take off and we'll catch up with you? No. Oh, did they see through that? And I just looked at Zach and I said, I believe we've been defeated. So, Frank and Fred, I am so sorry. I give you an honorable mention. I tried, but I got overruled. So I did not. And really, when you see what happens when we get to Reno, you're gonna, I should have been allowed to go there. But onwards to Reno, and really, the road trip, other than being hot and miserable for the girls, we made it. We made it to Reno. We stayed at the Grand Sierra Resort and Casino on the 26th floor, which was really fun because a lot of the deserts, a lot of where we were going was a lot just like Minnesota, hazy and foggy and not blue sky because they have forest fires south of them. They have a huge one just south of Lake Tahoe. So, and a lot of the locals, when we talk to them, they say, you really got to come back when the haze is gone. But it's the monsoon season, so thunderstorms were starting to roll through. It was kind of fun being on the 26th floor, watching the thunderstorms and the lightning go through. Dana and Zach, we got them to their house. Actually, it's a two-story apartment type thing, and we unloaded them in record time. Very hot, but again, dry heat. You just got to keep drinking water, but you don't have to worry about sweating, what's out. So after we got them set up and they were all Walmarted in and they found their target, it was comic book time. Well, basically what happened was we did a couple of touristy things. Like we went up into Virginia City, which is like another like 2,000 pop up in elevation, because everywhere except Reno proper, if you drive, you're going into the Sierras and that, you better have snow tires, you better have chains. During the wintertime, Dana's kind of come to the conclusion that during the wintertime, she's not going anywhere but Reno. So we went up into Virginia City. A car show was going on. It was a lot of fun. We ate, we drank, we walked around, didn't get to do my train ride. That's okay. We plan to come back eventually. However,
eventually,
we all started really feeling bad. And my guess is it might have been some type of altitude sickness, which you can only remedy by resting, drinking, and not drinking alcohol.
Oh.
Yeah. So when we got back to Reno, again, Virginia City's beautiful, historic, beautiful buildings. We walked around the cemetery a little bit. On the way back, it was raining, like I said, the monsoon season. But we just had a blast. The next day, though, we were all pretty much wiped out. We had planned to go to Lake Tahoe. We decided on the way down, let's go to Donner Pass, Donner State Park, where apparently they serve excellent finger food.
Boom, ching.
Google Donner Party. I don't want to get into a history lesson here.
Donner Party of 10. Donner Party of 9.
Party
Connor,
of
party of
7.
8.
Anyways, we decided the next day we were going to tour Reno. We were going to take Dana up to the university where she's going to be studying, and we're going to visit some comic shops.
Wait. Where she's going to be studied?
Yep, study. Well, see, she's in grad school. So, did you ever go to grad school, Cory?
No, I did not. Now, you said she was going to be studied.
But you had grad students teaching your classes 1 or 2 times, right?
Probably.
Yeah, so you're going to be studying them because it's not only.
Probably. I didn't pay any attention to them.
Well, whatever. You got your degree. That's all that matters. Because I remember
That's all that mattered.
Talking with Dana, it's like, okay, well, how are you going to deal with students that are disruptive? I hadn't even thought of that. I said, well, you might want to talk to my sister who teaches Italian out at the U because, you got bobos that like just say, well, I'm not going to turn anything. And then when they fail the class, oh, how could you fail me? Well, you didn't do any of the prerequisites. So I just, she's got to prepare that. Plus she's taking classes. It's like she teaches 2 days a week. She's taking classes 2 days a week. We found a back roads from her apartment to the university where she can either take a bus if she can get out early. A lot of times she can't because she has night classes, or she doesn't have to drive the freeway. I tell you, Cory, people who drive Nevada freeways are nuts. That was the only place where we almost got wiped out because I'm driving our rental car, and all of a sudden a guy comes on the freeway. Now he has his own lane, but he decides he wants my lane, not even look. If it wasn't for the fact there was nobody in the left lane, I blasted the horn. He swerved back and had that mental look on his face like, what's up there? If someone had been in the left lane, it would have been a very different podcast because there was nowhere to go. That's pretty much when Chris decided she's not driving there anymore. And Dana's like, I'm staying off the freeways, but I don't care. I just want something big like a truck. That's foreshadowing, by the way. So anyways, as I said before, we're going to comic shops. It's comic shop time. The first place I wanted to go to, how could I not go to Omega Frog Comics? You gotta love that name. I know, you gotta love that name. It's in the outlets at Legends, the outlet stores. 1108 Steeles Drive, B109, Building B109, Sparks, Nevada. Sparks, again, being a suburb of Reno. Not open. Unfortunately, there was a sign in the window. They had a family sickness or emergency, and they were closed until August 5th. So Omega Frog, I tried. There was a candy store right next to it that we jumped in, and I took a bunch of pictures, and we bought a little candy, so that was fun. It's a nice outlet mall, too. I mean, tons of things. But, yeah, it was almost like a miniature version of the largest candy store. And also, I mean, I saw Munch Bars. You remember Munch Bars, Cory?
Yeah, aren't they the peanut and caramel bar, right?
Yep, from M&M. And, you're just seeing different flavored Kit Kats, a whole wall of sodas. A lot of them we've seen. Some of them I've never seen before. Matter of fact, let me try to zoom in on the outlets here and see if I can find because that store deserves a shout out. Legends, direct and shop, dine, shop. That's what we want to do, right? Hang on a second. Candy. Search. Candy. There it is. Rocket Fizz. Soda Pop and Candy Shop. Where are they? Whatever, they're there. So if you do happen to get to Reno and you go to the mall there, the Outlets Legends, Rocket Fizz, Soda Pop and Candy Shop, and Omega Frog are on the same building. So check them out. Strike one. I told you I should have gone to Frank and Fred's in Elko. So the next shop we stopped at was called Coffee and Comics.
Ooh.
And yeah, this one actually, go to coffeeandcomics.com, 940 West Mona Lane in Reno. Now, what's neat about this one is they don't have new comics, but they had graphic novels. They had a wall of old comics. And I kind of brushed through and I picked up some stuff. I'll talk about the comics in a bit. I ended up dropping like about $150 there, which was weird because I was the only one there buying comics. Everybody else was buying coffee. I felt like such a weirdo. But they serve coffee. They open at 8 a.m. They close at 8 p.m. They had all sorts of coffee. Pretty much everybody bought coffee except me. They also have a couple kegs of beer, much like if you remember when I was down in Florida with our good buddy and sometimes pod buddy Turbo, Eric Jackman. We went to Gods and Monsters. That was a place that had comics in the front, and then in the back, they had the bar called Vault 5421, where they didn't serve kegs, but they served like cans and White Claws and bottled things. So I think if I were to ever do another comic store, this is the model. Coffee, a little bar in back, so you come in, your kids can wander through the store, you're in back drinking. But Chris actually came up to me and said, I could buy off on this. And I was like, wow. So this could actually be the comic store I might open. They also had a stage where they did stand-up comic or they do music acts. Actually, I don't know if I sent it to you. I sent it to our good friend Steph because she works, with folk acts and that. I thought that what a great place to just kind of be a community thing. And it was busy. There were people there. I talked to one of the local comedians that was drinking coffee at the time. Very friendly people. Again, I give a shout out to them. It's fun to look through their back issues. I don't know how they price them because there were things that I picked up that were like, really, this is like a $30, $40 comic you're selling at cover price. There were other things they had priced that were like, this is going like $5, $10 on eBay and you're asking 30. I did, however, pick up a book I had never heard about. Cory, have you ever heard of Gecko the Bounty Hunter?
No.
He appeared in The Mandalorian episode 1 and 3, played by actor Dominic Pace. Dominic Pace has made his own comic book based on Gecko. As far as I know, it's not licensed by Marvel, Star Wars, or Disney. And what he does is he goes and he visits comic shops, brings these comics, and signs them. There's 4 different ones. They're variants. None of them on eBay. None of them in his website. It was supposed to be 4 issues. So far, only 1 has been done. I wonder if that's because maybe Disney knocked on the door and said, yeah, we know what you're doing, but you probably shouldn't. Because I think he's kind of angling. And again, when you read the comic, it's very small, very short, but it's not, it doesn't refer to anything Star Wars other than Gecko. So again, this kind of reminds me of like when, and Cory, you can probably remember the name of the guy who created/co-created Ghost Rider, and he was selling prints that he did, and then when he sued Marvel,
no, he wasn't selling prints. He did. What it was, he was the writer.
Oh, okay. I thought Marv Wolfman was the writer, but
nope, it was Gary Friedrich, and
okay.
The creator was actually Roy Thomas, Don Perlin, and Gary Friedrich. And Friedrich sued Marvel for ownership, of course, when the movie hit, but he was also selling these prints of the cover of the first issue. And Marvel cracked down on him because, well, 1, he's suing them, and 2, he's, setting up a website and all of this and selling prints. Now, if he were the artist, they usually will kind of turn a blind eye if the artist is selling prints of their own work, as long as you're not in their face about it. But he didn't even help design the comic cover. It was designed by John Romita and drawn by Don Perlin. And so Marvel kind of came down on him for doing that. And it was at a time when there were, Marv Wolfman was suing over Blade, and there were a lot of lawsuits going. And Marvel was, I don't I don't know if they were owned by Disney or not yet. Because one of the things you could say about Disney is very protective of their trademarks.
Oh, yeah.
And while people get mad that, oh, it's a daycare where they painted a bunch of Mickey Mouse and Disney characters on the wall. Well, that's all well and good. But that daycare is a business, and you're using their characters. And if they find out about it and don't say, stop that, somebody else uses the characters, and it can be pointed to, well, you let these people use your character. You let these people use your character. Why not these people? Which is why Kleenex and Xerox and other companies will go out of their way to go, no, you need to put the registered trademark sign if you're going to use that name, or you have to use tissues, or you have to use copies or photocopies, because they have to maintain that trademark. The most famous example in comics was with Cerebus, when we had Wolveroach. So what it was, the Roach would pretend to be different superheroes, and he had been Moonroach and all this stuff. And Sim did a story where he was Wolveroach. Now, Marvel didn't care about that. They did care when Wolveroach was cover featured 4 times in a row. And the 4th time it was cover featured, they sent a cease and desist letter. And, comic fans and Dave Sim all got all angry and everything. And Sim had been doing stuff with Epic Magazine with Archie Goodwin. And Archie sat him down and said, look, if we don't protect our copyright, if Wolverine goes out of trademark, goes out of copyright, that's huge money that we could be losing. DC could do Wolverine stories, Carlton could do Wolverine stories, etc., etc. We're just telling you, quit putting the damn character on your cover. And that's kind of what they did with him. They said, look, we're already in a lawsuit with you. You're taking our copyrighted cover, blowing it up and selling prints of it. Don't do that. Thus,
Yeah, and you got to remember too,
lesson.
Marvel lost the rights to Champion for a while to another company because they weren't using it and they didn't.
Well, there was a superhero role-playing game called Champions.
Yeah.
And they, Marvel didn't do anything about it. Well, it's superheroes called Champions. Marvel didn't do anything about it, so they lost the trademark. They have since gained it back because the company that was doing Champions as a role-playing game has gone under, so Marvel got the trademark back. But I think there was a comic called The Order that Matt Fraction did that was going to be the Champions, but they found out like less than a month before it was to go to print, you don't have the right to use the name The Champions. Oh, crap. What are we going to call it now?
Yeah. So you got to be careful there. I will give a shout out to Comic Kingdom because, as I said, there were 3 comic stores in Nevada. Unfortunately, Comic Kingdom is closed Sunday and Monday. I understand comic stores being closed, but you lost my business because I was only there for the 2 days and I couldn't visit. However, you can go visit them. Let's see. They are at 595 East Moana Lane in Reno. And that was the only other one that I wasn't able to get to in Reno. We did visit a thrift store. Apparently, Reno is like thrift store capital. And the one my daughter had heard about that someone who had gone to the college recommended was a place called Junkie Clothing Exchange. 690 South Virginia Street, Reno, Nevada. This also is down in a very trendy, nice part of town. I think, did they call it Midtown, I think? But the store was fantastic. When you walk in, you go right, you go left, that's where the clothes are. I went right and I wandered through. I found some fantastic places that sold comics. Way in the back, there's a guy who has a huge comic display. That's where I started texting you books, Cory, where they were like what were the ones, the Carlton reprints or something?
Oh, yeah.
I forget what they were. And just tons of signed books, tons of other things. I mean, if I had time, I would have looked through all this stuff. I did pick up something called Maniac 2, which apparently is a sequel to the classic 1980s slasher film. This was a whole set that came with a poster, a pin, a trading cards. It sounded interesting. I picked it up. I haven't looked at it yet. Who knows? It might end up on the eBays. I just don't know. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to Junkies, there was one thing I wanted to pick up that I didn't. They had a couple graphic novels, super cheap, and I told Dana, when you go back, let me know and I'll let you know where I think the comics, where the albums are. The graphic novels. They had tons of graphic novels, tons of records, tons of CD. I mean, it was just fun. It was almost like a miniature comic store in and of itself. So that was pretty much it for visiting Reno. After that, we bundled up in the rental car, having returned the truck a while back. Went over the Sierras into California because we were going to fly out of Sacramento. Oddly enough, could not find a cheap flight out of Reno. So we went to Sacramento instead, flew Delta, which I think is my go-to now. Just seems like all the cheap airlines seem to be having real troubles lately. Once we got over the Sierra, again, beautiful countryside. It's like you're going through northern Minnesota, except there's big mountains and big valleys on either side of you. We got to a couple rest areas, took some awesome photos. And again, I'm using, I don't know, Cory, if you have Google Timeline chugging away on your phone.
Yeah, I get it once a month.
Yeah, and my trip to
It shows
Reno,
me all the places I work.
most of the time for me, now it's showing me, like I said, my trip to Reno, which was a lot of fun. So let me call up. Oh, no, that's the flight home. Oh, there's a place called Truckee, California, which was a beautiful little town. Apparently, my other daughter's boyfriend, her sister got married there. So if you ever get a chance to visit that, again, this is up and over the Immigrant Gap. You know, you're in the 7,000s. But yeah, we just got to the airport. We flew home. It's just, my wife and I are like, yeah, it's going to take us, 6 hours with a 2-hour layover in Salt Lake City to get home, which took us like 4 days to get out there. So again, I guess I understand why people fly, but you miss so much if you can't afford to drive and just enjoy the scenery, and more importantly, have some decent air conditioning. I did find where that rest stop was on Highway 80, but as I said, in the let's see, Salt Lake City, blah blah blah. Nope, that wasn't it. It's funny watching as I'm traveling across country on this thing. The Grassy Mountain Rest Area westbound, just west of, so if you're going to stop there, bring your own toilet paper. You have been warned. It was kind of funny as we were driving across the Moab Desert there. Somebody had left a couch in the middle of nowhere, just there. I told Zach, I said, what we got to do is come back, have somebody drop us off, and let's just sit here for a day and watch cars go by.
I would say later, you've got to be sitting there and at least get a picture.
Oh yeah, and then later on there was somebody who had drawn or put in like a sculpture of a sea snake coming up and out of the sands. Just amazing. And what's even more amazing is when I look at the roads that kind of disappear off into nowhere. They're going somewhere, but like I said, Chris and I will probably, if we ever decide to drive back, and we might, because we figure if we drove ourselves in our cars, we could get there real quick. We'd probably take the same route and stop at some of these places we couldn't stop at before and just kind of enjoy some of the scenery. So, but that was it. I still visited, what did I get? 3 comic stores, 3 shout outs, a candy store, and a thrift store. So it wasn't too bad. I didn't want to go too crazy because I had to drag all the stuff home. I was able to at least pack it well, and everything survived the trip home. And there was much rejoicing.
You know who will help you with your trip around the internet, Joe?
Well, not Google. They just kind of track me. It's kind of creepy, but it's fun.
Well, if you don't want to be tracked, you would use these guys, our sponsors, NordVPN. Our newest sponsor is NordVPN. Let's be honest, if you're out on the internet, you need a VPN to protect you. There's all sorts of things going on the internet where people can track you. You could accidentally download a keylogger, all sorts of things. NordVPN gives the best security possible. It has a password manager which generates complex passwords, syncs across all your devices, stores your notes and credit card information. It also gives you 10 gigabytes of private cloud storage, secure files. It backs up your data automatically. But the main thing it gives you is peace of mind. It gives you peace of mind when you're out on the internet, when you're streaming, when you're playing games, when you're listening to podcasts like this one. It gives you safety anywhere at any time. It protects your online activity. You get full access to all content. And if you use the link go.nordvpn.net sh3ku, it'll take you to where you can get a great deal for a 1-month plan, a 2-year plan, a 1-year plan. They are our newest sponsor. We're happy to have them. And if you would like to sponsor something here at any of the podcasts on the Solitaire Rose Network, you can. Just email me, solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And if you need something to listen to while you're on your road trip, just think of all these podcasts. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network is currently on a pause, basically because COVID-19 has made it so that I have to work a lot of extra hours at both jobs. But you can still go and listen to my other podcasts. Now, you're probably listening to Crazy Comics and Stories, which is the main podcast. But on this same feed, KRAYZCOMIX, is Solitaire Rose Radio, the solo radio podcast that I do. I've done interviews, I've done short stories, I've done all sorts of things, and you can get to it right here on this same feed. I also do a podcast called Novelcast, where I take the novels I've written and turn them into free audiobooks. That's over at novels.solitairerose.com. Dangerous Dan Moore and I, and of course Wolfie B. Bad, give you bad advice over at badadvice.solitairerose.com. You send in your questions, and we give you the aforementioned bad advice. And then myself and Adam Vermillion from For the Love of Comics do the Fantastic Forecast at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com, where we go through the issues of the Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time, to give the plot and commentary on each issue. That's not all. Yes, I'm crazy. I still, over at pwinsiderelite.com, every week on Wednesday, do a recap of the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. I write up what happened, and then myself and Anthony Pyrus will do an audio. Now, you can only listen to the audio, if you remember, at pwinsiderelite.com, and if you're a wrestling fan, you should be, where we then break down the episode, talk about what we liked, what we didn't like, give it a grade, and let you know if you should have watched that episode. Those are the other podcasts here at the Solitaire Rose Radio Network. Thanks. And now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where I let him talk about what goes on at Wall Drug after midnight.
What goes on at Wall Drugs?
No, it's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
Lots of stuff. But I'm not going to sit here and
list thanks. Good night, everybody.
Sales. Actually, there's a couple of things I do want to mention. One of them was in my freaking, but since I ended up selling it, I had a copy of Holy Terror hardcover by Frank Miller. It was actually published by his own imprint, Legendary. Cory, tell him about Holy Terror.
Holy Terror was it started as a Batman graphic novel. And what it was after 9/11. And if you read the Dark Knight Strikes Again, you can actually tell in the story where 9/11 happened while Frank Miller was drawing it, because he completely changed the story due to 9/11. But after 9/11, Frank Miller said he wanted to do a propaganda comic, much like was done in World War II after Pearl Harbor. And when he delivered it to DC, they went, "Oh no, we can't publish this." So he redrew it, and it was published by a company called Legendary Comics. Legendary Comics is basically a company that creates comics to pitch for movies. Like, do you remember that Hercules movie The Rock was in?
Oh, yeah.
They did a comic of it and took it around to the studios to kind of show them what they were going to be doing. Legendary is also the studio that does a lot of the DC movies. So he took it to them. They published it. It sold great at the time, but now everybody who bought it regrets buying it. And Miller himself says, "Yeah, I went way too far."
Well, and this is a case of again, I bitched last time about Bill Tucci. People are dumping on him because he's doing a omnibus of his She. And it's the old question you and I have talked about. I think we talked about it on the podcast. Where do you separate the art from the artist? Well, this is the same thing too, because people are they're retroactively condemning it, not remembering the times that happened after 9/11, just how freaked we were about stuff. And I would say people who regret having it don't. It's running upwards of $75 on the eBays. Sell it. Believe me, there are people looking for it that want it. I was surprised because I had the thing. I tried to read it a couple times. I tried to look at it like, okay, it's a Batman story. I talked to my wife. I showed it to my wife, and she goes, "Yeah, I can see the Batman." I said, "Yeah, it's just a propaganda piece. It just so happened it's a U.S. propaganda." But to people that crap on it, it's like, are we going to disown Eisner because of the way he drew characters back on the Spirit strip? No. Remember the history behind it and don't do it again. I'm pretty sure Frank ain't gonna, but if you got one, sell that baby, because people are looking for it whether you want it or not. And I was surprised because I put mine low, but I put it what I thought. I can't believe it's going for that. It sold. Another thing that sold that also surprised the living bejesus out of me, as I was going through the great graphic novel purge, of which Holy Terror was part of it, I discovered I had 2 copies of All-Star Companion Volume 1. This is published by Tomorrow's under the auspices of Roy Thomas, talking about actually for this time it was the 60th anniversary of the Justice Society of America. Guess how much these bad boys are going for, Cory?
Oh, probably way too much.
Yeah. I put mine up at $70. Somebody made an offer. As I paid half a cover, I was more than happy to give it to someone that I hope is just happy he got a copy of this baby finally. I was surprised at the price of these things. Basically, this is a fantastic. He almost should do a companion of all 4 volumes, just in one big omnibus type thing. Although I believe, knowing Roy, he probably has them available digitally. But it features the Justice Society of America, and right on the cover it's an issue by issue coverage of All-Star Comics 1 through 57, the JLA JSA team ups, the 1970 All-Star Revival featuring Power Girl, art, lots of art unpublished from JSA stories, an examination of the 4 lost in air quotes All-Star comics with art. It's about Michael T. Gilbert, Adam Hughes, Carmen Infantino, Gil Kane, Jack Kirby, Joe Kubert, Sheldon Moldoff. I mean, the Roy is I don't know. Am I wrong saying he's probably one of the best historians we have of putting this stuff to paper nowadays? So, whether it's what's the name? Back Issue is one of them. Alt Tomorrow. Am I saying that right?
He does Alter Ego.
Alter Ego. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Lots of books. So yeah, this one obviously out of print because it's silly money, and the one I sold is out for silly money. I've spent most of the day putting up the graphic novels that I had duplicates or triplicates of from the Great Graphic Novel Purge. If you're interested, go right to my page, Crazy Comics, KRAYZ. As listeners of the show, just if you see something you're interested in, buy it. Let me know you're a listener. I'll toss in some fun freebie. Maybe if it's too high priced, I may make me an offer I can't refuse. But you know where to go. KRAYZ, come get some.
And now we get to my favorite part of the show.
Oh,
No,
are we
no,
gargling grape juice?
No, not where I eat an entire cherry pie while Joe gargles. No, it's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
Did I tell you that Nevada is a hot spot for COVID because nobody there believes in masks?
I know that because our pal Dave Shearer has a house in Vegas and has been talking about it because SummerSlam's going to be there. And even on the PW Insider website, he's putting up all sorts of COVID facts, basically saying, look, if you're going to go to Vegas for SummerSlam, this is the stuff you need to know.
More importantly, as of August 1st, there is a mandatory mask mandate. You go inside, you have to wear a mask. I mentioned before we're at the casino, and of course, you can always tell the bubbleheads that don't want to wear the mask because, and they actually have people passing out the mask. I think they were doing it slowly. My theory is, and I believe Nevada has a Republican governor, is that
Democratic governor, but there's a Republican in charge of Vegas.
Okay, because as we drove through downtown Reno, there are casinos boarded up and empty. It is eerie as heck. I don't know if you've ever, I've driven through East St. Louis and downtown St. Louis with tons of buildings boarded up, and to see a casino closed. My guess is the guys running the casinos probably got together and just told the boys, we got an offer, you better not refuse, because they're tired of losing business. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. But as we were there, we had to wear masks. I mentioned we had altitude sickness. Well, on the way back, when Dana and Zach were driving back over the Sierras, Zach lost his sense of taste. Yes, folks, he caught the COVID. I don't know if he could have caught it that quick in Nevada. And what's really baffling is, of all the people I know, Dana and Zach are they didn't go out. They worked from home. They had stuff delivered. They were both vaccinated, thank God, because Zach is recovered. I've had 2 tests, so I don't have it, even though I'm feeling run down, but that's probably just my own laziness. Or the fact that I've spent all day in the basement putting stuff on eBay and not really walking around, eating donuts. I love donuts. So,
yeah, did you make Chris eat the waxy donut when you got in the car?
You always have a road trip. And Dana had her road trip donut. The one thing she didn't do, she used to have a air freshener Spider-Man in her window that you tap every time she starts her car. She took it down.
Yep, that's why.
That's why. So anyways, all well that ends well. I do feel bad because Dana's got to do everything virtually at school now for a while, but she's come up, we've all tested negative except poor Zach, and he's recovering. So get vaccinated, take care of it. We need more listeners in this here podcast. We can't afford to lose the ones we got. I haven't mentioned work lately. I'm in the end game now. I've got all my clearance. The only real problem is when my doctor sent in a list of the medicines I'm on, they left 2 on from when I had my hip surgery. One of them was Oxycontin. Another one was a very powerful sedative. Sedative! Those are pretty much no-nos if you're going to be screening the public for items, incendiaries, guns, and explosives. So they said, Joe, you got 60 days to get off them. And I'm like, I'm not even on them. So
Well,
I
there you
haven't been
go.
able to get a hold of my doctor, but next week I got a doctor appointment just for normal checkup stuff. And I'm going to talk to him and say, could you please take these off my list and then write me a signed letter that says I am no longer on them. So hopefully I can get this done with. The other weird thing that's freaking, and again, this isn't so much unless you're a toy geek. Boy, Targets and Walmarts are really, really bereft of toys. I'm on a side geek. There's a national group called the Toy Geek and then Minnesota Toy Geek. But boy, these guys, the toys, the Target and Walmart really don't understand the collector market. You know, because they get in a case of toys and it sells out and then they don't get anything for months. And the few Walmarts I went into as I went cross country are pretty much the same. Shelves totally empty. I'm like, hey, it could be a couple things. Either things are selling that fast and they're out. They could be still gummed up on the West Coast because everything comes over a cargo ship. And if they can't get it through the ports, you know, they could be sitting on the dock somewhere. I suspect these guys just ain't ordering butkus because, and there's been some other things too. I mean, I got a score on a Ecto 1 from the movie coming up. I think the movie's out when? This fall, next spring? The toys have already been.
Know.
The toy, I've seen a trailer for it and it looks fun. But the toys were out originally when the movie was supposed to originally been out. So, you know, same thing with the Suicide Squad toys, which are coming out. By the way, King Shark's the big one to pick.
Well, of course, he's the best character.
There's tons of G.I. Joes. There's tons of Transformers. There's tons of McFarlane DC figures. Nobody's finding anything. And people are, the nice thing with the Toy Geek is that they work with each other, you know, as they're not there to flip things for tremendous amounts of money. They're here. I found this, who needs it? And then they either hide it or they hide it. The weird one is there's a thing going on, and I didn't see Space Jams, but one of the main characters, the main basketball player, people are stealing the heads off these guys because of TikTok. Yeah, and so if you walk into your Target and they say Space Jam figures, please see your associates, because people are walking by. These figures aren't in a blister pack; they're just ripping the heads off and taking it because some dumb snot on TikTok thinks it's funny. So amusing, but not if you're collecting Space Jam toys. So that's pretty much it for me for freaking. Cory, what you freaking on?
I really don't have a lot I am freaking on. It was other than the two surgeries, it's been a very quiet couple of weeks. Being able to read stuff on paper again has been fantastic. I have a new fridge. I have air conditioning. I'm still working from home. And with the Delta variant, it looks like I don't have to worry about them opening the office anytime soon. So let's get on to geeking. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Well, Chris and I watched the Harry Potter movies when we were at the casino. They happened to have them on Sci-Fi Channel, and generally after bopping around in 100-degree dry heat all day, we were just kind of tired. We didn't really gamble a lot. We did hit a couple slot machines, and Chris did really well at one. When you're on a video game, if you double your money, quit. That's the best you can do. You know, obviously playing live blackjack or craps, whatever. And these casinos were kind of fun. I mean, they had bowling, they had a theater, they had a bunch of live shows. Unfortunately, they were the following week. They didn't have any shows. They had mini golf, shopping, not to mention tons of stuff going on around. So, I mean, in and of itself, it was fun. But at the end of the night, we got tired. We watched Harry Potter till we fell asleep. When we got home, we finished watching Harry Potter. Well, finished in the sense that we suddenly discovered we didn't have the Half-Blood Prince. It's like, how could we have doubles and triplicates of every Harry Potter movie? Because I bought them, Dana bought them, Dana's boyfriend bought them, Zach bought them, Holly bought them. Fortunately, I was able to go on the eBays and order the Half-Blood Prince, just the disc. I don't need the clam case or any of the other things. It got me thinking maybe I should convert all my stuff to just the discs and files. But then again, what would I do with the rest of it? Throw it away? That would make them valuable. Collectibles. Ooh. I did get my Kickstarter from Jeff Smith, Tukey, which is his book. It's a graphic novel fantasy. At the dawn of humanity, during a period of tremendous change and drought, 3 lost children meet a mysterious traveler named Tukey. Together, their search for the motherhead of all buffalo leads them far north through the dangerous territories of a rival species called the Habaline. Habaline hunt and kill anyone found using fire. Tukey's reputation precedes them, and soon they find themselves at the center of unwanted attention, not only from these warriors, but from gods and giants. So it's his artwork. So if you've read Bone, you know what it looks like. I really can't wait to read this thing. So it obviously will be reviewed as we, when we get to a review show eventually. Speaking of eBays, again, I left my shop on while I was gone, and a lot of sales. Unfortunately, everybody was cool about waiting for it to get back. I actually bought some stuff too. I did, Cory. I broke down on eBays, found myself an AEW Orange Cassidy figure. Other than shipping and tax, I actually didn't pay too much for it. So I was kind of happy about that. So I did get that. I did find at a Target closing out the Bobby Heenan and Weasel suit. So I actually got one for me and one for Cory.
Yay!
So I picked up a copy of The Three Geeks, The Geekville Years by Rich Kalowski. That's the series he did with the Three Geeks being 3 comic collectors. This is kind of the omnibus that collects the geeking years. Very, very expensive, but I found some guy who had it in less than perfect shape, so I picked that up for good. I mentioned before I picked up Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. We did finish watching them. I don't know if you've ever watched them, Cory, or read them, but I enjoyed the heck out of them. It's good continuity. And of course, I've watched it enough where I've started to discover plot holes. And occasionally, as I read something, of course, the movies aren't near as detailed as the books. And then occasionally I'll go into the Harry Potter Wikipedia and just read up on, like, well, what happened to this character? What happened to that character? Don't judge me, Cory. I bought the Before Watchmen omnibus.
Oh,
cheap.
You get it cheap?
Cheap. I got it cheap. The only reason I picked it up because, as I mentioned before, way back when, 2, 3, I don't know how many podcasts before, but Kelly White from the MCBF, by the way, the MCBF's charity store, will be live on September 25th. I finally got it off work. So if you're looking to go to the MCBF show, it will be at the grandstand at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds, Saturday, September 25th. If you have anything you are interested in donating, I don't care if you're cross country, cross nation, or across the street, get a hold of me through the various ways Cory drops, either direct note through eBays, uses email. Everything is tax deductible, but it's been 2 years, folks. I really don't have a lot of stuff to donate, so I'm counting on you guys. And again, I'm not looking for, hey, if you got an Action Comics #1 just sitting around doing nothing, I'm willing to take it from you. But I'm looking for the stuff you know you will not get butt kiss for if you go to Half Price Bookstore, if you go to the comic shop. These are things that I will take and I will turn into charity gold. Just like Cory did when we started this show. This year it's going to be myself, Chris, Holly, Jared, because Dana and Zach, of course, we might see them at Christmas. We're not sure. That'll be the freaking. I won't get to see my daughter for Christmas. But so check that out. Anyways, what happened was I have a bunch of the Jim Lee variants, which are silly, silly money. So I put them up on the site. If you buy them, my eBay site, that money will go to the charity as well. But I read a few of them and I figured, I'm not going to go out of my way crazy to buy them, but I found a cheap omnibus and I thought, you know what? I'll read through this and I'll give you guys an assessment. I mean, it's got some decent names on it: Darwin Cook, Adam Hughes, Jay Lee, J. Michael Straczynski. So somebody's having fun in the Alan Moore. Oh, I'm sorry, the original artist sandbox, and DC's still having fun in their sandbox. I just, I don't know. I enjoyed Doomsday Clock. Did you read that, Cory?
Yes, I did. I did enjoy that as well.
Yeah,
Although
I
it's
haven't.
another one of those where it started out, this is part of the DC universe, and by the end it was, no, it's not. Kind of like Three Jokers. Three Jokers started out in the DC universe, and then by the time it came out, it's like, yeah, we all know.
Yeah, that's kind of depressing. Because they led to a lead in like where they're alluding to in 2025 there was to be a Marvel DC crisis fight. But now Jeff Johns isn't in charge anymore, so whatever. I got a new car. It's a Ford Intrepid Interceptor. Or not Intrepid, it's a Ford Interceptor. It's a cop car, basically. My dad bought it from Crystal, which is a little tiny community in Minneapolis. Well, its own city, but it's only like 50 square miles, so they didn't do much to this thing. But oh my God, these things have a turbo in it. Cory, I understand why cops come out of nowhere and are suddenly in your rearview mirror, because I can punch the 70 in about 4 seconds. Takes up a lot of gas, though.
Yeah.
So what's fun is as I was driving it home, my dad put stickers on the back of it because he got real tired of people driving up on his ass and then slowing down, thinking, oh shit, it's a cop. Because he's still got like the spotlights on it. There's no cop stuff in the middle. There's no cop lights anywhere. But so what he did on the back, he's got like Betty Boop. He's got some Deadpool. How the hell did my dad find Deadpool stickers? So if I'm thinking of peeling them off and just putting on not a cop, or am I? Because anyways, it drives nice. It's big. I can't wait the next time you and Butch get a geeking bug in us. We're gonna have plenty of room for stuff, and it's comfy seats, quiet. I think it's quiet. We'll find out when we record it. So I'm looking forward to driving that thing all over hell. I'm gonna give my truck to my brother because he's got a truck that's dying. So I got me a new car, and as I said before, I tested negative for coronavirus, so I get to go to Free Comic Book Day.
Yay!
Which is, as we record this, a few days away. We're getting together with a whole clan of people. I will probably still be wearing my mask, just in case. But, I'm vaccinated. I feel fine, other than my laziness. And I was worried if I didn't, our original plan was to get tested back from Nevada, just because we were in a hotspot, we were in crowds. And then when poor Zach got it, we thought, okay, let's do it again. But knock on simulated wood, I am clear and free. So I do believe that's all I got to talk about in terms of trips. And, or I should say, we did actually watch Forrest Gump one. So that's all I got to say about that. Cory, what you geeking on?
First off, if you are a person who plays computer games, boy, you should like free games, because free games are the best games, right?
Oh, yeah. If they're truly free.
Oh, yeah. These are free games. What it is, Epic, the people who do Fortnite, they have a app that you can get on your computer, and every week they give away 2 games. Some of them are, meh. Some of them are fun. Some of them are really cool. There was one, I think it was called Hearthstone 2, which was a Diablo knockoff that I spent a good 2-3 weeks playing when things were quiet at my my office job. And it was a lot of fun. Also, the website GOG.com, which stands for Good Old Games, they sell a lot of old computer games that have been sort of updated so they run on your current computer now. They gave away Syndicate Plus, Syndicate Wars, Ultima Underworld 1, and Ultima Underworld 2. Ultima Underworld 1 and 2 are basically they're old computer games from the early 90s, back before Doom. So I think it's really cool that, hey, we got these really old games. We can make them run on your computer. It's how I was able to pick up, let's see, I've got Serious Sam, I've got Deus Ex, I've got Thief 1, 2, and 3, Death Trap Dungeon, basically 90s games that I didn't have time to play or couldn't afford back then. They now sell them for, next to nothing. I've been picking up the BioWare D&D games like Neverwinter Nights and Icewind Dale, and when they go on sale, you can usually get them for like $3-4. And that's, 20 years ago, those were $60, $70 games. I wouldn't have had time to play them anyway. Comic-wise, I am still reading that Thor Epic collection. And while the art is good, boy, the stories fell off a cliff really fast. It's like, after Kirby left, you got Neil Adams to finish the story, and then John Buscema, and this stuff's pretty good. And then the next story is Thor has to go to the world beyond. And he spends 2 issues dealing with Doctor Doom. And when he finally gets to Asgard, Odin says, no, the world beyond is too dangerous. You're going to stay here and run Asgard while I go to the world beyond. And when Odin gets there, there's a villain named Infinity. And it's one of those where when Odin sees his face, it's very much a, no, not you.
Not you.
I'm going to be spoiling a 50-year-old story, by the way.
Aw.
You know who Infinity was? It was a ghost of Odin that was created when he was in the Odin sleep. Yep.
I'm drinking my cranberry juice so I don't go, bah!
Yeah, pretty much. Comic-wise, the new issue of Mad, Mad's mostly reprints now. The new issue of Mad is the sports issue because, of course, it's the Olympics. Half of this issue is drawn by Jack Davis. Going all the way back to Mad as a comic book, they actually reprint the Jack Davis illustrating Casey at the Bat, which is one of my favorite things Mad did as a comic. When they got way behind, they would take a classic poem and give it to either Bill Elder or Jack Davis and say, here, just draw some funny stuff for it, okay? We're running behind, and you guys are the fastest artists we got. But it also has one of the classic Mad articles, and if I mention it, if you know it, you will instantly get that, oh yeah, Joe, have you heard of 43 Man Squamish?
Wow, that's ringing a bell.
43 Man Squamish in the 60s was a game they created.
Wow.
And it's, typically nuts. It's like a Squamish team consists of 43 players, the left and right inside grouches, the left and right outside grouches, 4 deep brooders, 4 shallow brooders, 5 wicket men, 3 offensive nibblings, 4 quarter frummets, 2 half frummets, a full frummet, 2 overblats, 2 underblats, 9 backup finks, 2 leapers, and a dummy. This article was so popular that in colleges for like a year or two, there were a couple of colleges who actually used these rules and had 43-man Squamish teams. And, it's overly complicated and all of this. Like the original charter calls for an annual meeting of the National Squamish Rules Committee. At its inaugural meeting, the committee approved a rewording of Article 16, paragraph 77, section J of the rules. This section, which formerly read, the offensive left underblat in all even-numbered ogres touched down his frollup at the edge of the flutney and signaled the head coxswain that he is ready for play to continue, has now been simplified to read: the offensive laughed Underblatt in all even number ogres, much touched down his frollup at the edge of flutney and signal either the head coxswain or any other official to whom the head coxswain may have delegated this authority in writing or in the presence of two witnesses, both of whom shall have been approved and found to be of high moral character by the office of the commissioner, that he is ready for play to continue. That's the kind of article it is. People actually played the game. It's one of the classic Mad articles. I love that they reprinted it. I doubt anybody would try to play the game now because Mad Magazine sells less than 100,000 copies. But come on, man, you get a whole bunch of classic Jack Davis. Makes me happy. Spider-Man is entering the last stages of Nick Spencer's run, and he is pulling out all the stops. He's using all the villains that he can jam into it. Doctor Strange has figured out that Mephisto has done something, and Mephisto is doing the Greg Brady thing, where you're not lying, but you're not telling all the truth. So Peter Parker wouldn't have ever agreed to a deal with you. He didn't.
Oh, that's true. He didn't.
Nope, it was Mary Jane. So we shall see what we shall see, since they're going to be having going in a new direction with issue 75. Really excited about that. I love the fact that I can read comics on paper now. And it's weird how, it's one of those things where I thought my eyes were getting bad rather slowly, but when I look back and I, charted things, it's like basically starting at the beginning of May to the end of June, it's like, holy crap, my vision turned to shit pretty quick. So I'm glad that that's all corrected. And I have a new refrigerator because the old refrigerator was basically on its last legs. I got it when I got the house over 30 years ago. And it's one of those things where little things would start to go wrong here, a little thing would start to go wrong there, until all of a sudden you realize, well, the bottom two racks are broken. The light doesn't work. This doesn't, yeah. And I measured everything. Ordered the refrigerator. When the night before they brought it, I started freaking out because I looked again at the stats and it's like, if it's an inch too tall, it's not going to fit where the old refrigerator fit. And I remeasured and did everything. And I spent the whole night just worrying that it wouldn't fit. Two guys showed up, put it in. They said, wow, this fits perfectly. So I need to trust myself, Joe. Really need to trust myself. The other thing is the old fridge had like a 9.5 square foot. This one, 18 square feet inside. So I could buy more veggies to go bad. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to Joe talk about his trip for almost an hour and a half.
And since I don't have another trip planned until next February, you won't have to do it till then.
No. We have a trip planned this Saturday.
Yeah, but you just record that, and then we'll talk about it a little bit next week. And I did get word that my discount comic service box is on the way, so maybe next week previews.
Sounds good to me. I've already got my previews all marked up.
Sweet,
because I can read it now.
Yay!
That was the other thing. Previews, it got to the point where I can't read any of this at all. But now, nope, got the new previews. I could read it.
And I know you're going to review previews or Deathmate because, you didn't give it a fair shake the first time around.
I am looking at my order, by the way, Joe. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 omnibuses coming.
Good grief. I mean,
3
canceled
Captain
like
America.
20 of them last month.
3 Captain America omnibuses, the Marvel August 1961 omnibus, the X Factor with Peter David omnibus, and yeah. So, and all of my free comic book day stuff. So, as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Life could be worse. Milk could have pulp.
Ugh.
Legitly. Cory, hit my music.